I'm Anthony Ruggiano, and I have a few announcements to make. Life has been good since I recovered from cocaine addiction. I'm happy to say it's been coming up on 34 years that I'm clean. I also created an Anthony Ruggiano Jr. Recovery Helpline, and I'm going to give you that number right now. If you need help or you know someone that needs help, please call me. The number is 855-963-2113. I'm going to repeat that. It's 855-963-2113. So if someone you know or yourself needs help, please don't hesitate to call me. And in spite of giving back to society, I've been named an ambassador to Face the Music. Face the Music Foundation is a foundation that helps people that can't afford drug treatment and alcohol treatment. They provide scholarships for people to go into treatment. They actually pay for the treatment because not everybody has insurance. So unfortunately, there's some people out there suffering from addiction that can't afford to go to treatment. And so this foundation supplies the money for treatment, which is schooling and drug prevention and recovery. And treatment is very important because in my own personal story, if it wasn't for the treatment center I was lucky enough to go to, I would probably be dead right now because that treatment center gave me the tools to recover. So this foundation affords people those tools to change their life. To get ready for a big event on October 29th. Big Halloween, my birthday party, Halloween 1920s theme. Go onto the website, Reform Gangsters and sign up. It's going to be a big event. Tommy's Flash is going to be there. Rita Giganti is going to be there. And check out our podcast, Reform Gangsters. And it's going to be a good time. Right, Tommy?
We also, we might as well let it out of the bag. We also have Leo Rossi, very accomplished actor, analyzed this, Halloween, The Accused. He wrote the Gotti movie with John Travolta. He also is the co-host of Deep Undercover with Joe Pistone, and he will be our special guest live.
That's right, at the event on October 29th. So also, you could join us on October 30th out in Ronkonkoma, live in the studio. Tickets are on sale at reformgangsters.com. It's going to be Leo Rossi, myself, and Tommy Flash. Once again, we're going to be filming the Reform Gangsters podcast. It should be a good time. So I hope to see you there. I want to welcome everybody to reformgangsters.com. Here we are once again, Tommy Flash and myself, to talk about the good old days, running around Jamaica Queens, running a major number ring that eventually I went to prison for. One of the many times I was in prison. Tommy, what's going on?
Nothing much. How you doing down there? Everything good?
Everything's good. The hurricane missed us. It's all good. So we spoke earlier about the difference between the Queens guys and the Brooklyn guys. And I know you were a Brooklyn guy. You came over to us. We would consider Queens guys. What did you find there to be any difference? Any uncomfortability? Anything different or the same?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound Pollyannerist. I felt like the new kid in school. Yeah. It was totally different. It's different for a lot of reasons. The demographics, the neighborhoods were different. So basically, I came from Bensonhurst. And even though Sammy's crew was a little different, because I go back to him at Doc's Bar, so he was just a street hoodlum, and they're pretty isolated. But generally, the prototypical crew in Bensonhurst was guys were all dressed up every day. The whole crew was outside. It looked like a Hollywood set. And people knew who they were, and they pretty much, everyone knew what they were about. So there was a net under them. When I got to you guys, it was totally different. First of all the guys in the club were all like city workers. Anyone who was close to Tony Lee was out the door, and you didn't see them till later, which I became a part of that, which you were a part of that for years, sort of like the Republican Guard with the Iraqis. Didn't see you guys, but they were there. And also, too, I think we're going to a little history, which I've heard you, and I'm sure the listeners have listened to you. They seem to be very sophisticated, the group that listens to you. I wanted to say that. I commend them. The history, your father got straightened out in 1953, Tony in 56. In 1957, I believe the books were closed. Am I correct, Anthony?
No, the books got opened in 50. They were closed in 53. They opened in 57. And then they closed right. They opened, and then when Albert Anastasia got killed, Carl Gambino closed them again.
Right. So that was what, 50?
Yeah. Tony Lee was one of the last guys to get straightened out in our family. And Tony Lee got straightened out at the end of 56.
56. My point being, so basically, guys were straightened out. Your father and Tony were young, which means they were ambitious. That means for 20 years, they had to jump on a lot of guys. They were from East New York. And listen to me, historically run areas that were impoverished, run down. There was two types of income in there, drugs or numbers. For people who don't know what numbers is, it's what you could go play in any convenience store today. Back then, it was illegal. It was a major money thing. So you say, well, okay. So Tony and your father were young. They were straightened out. They were very ambitious. They conquered. They owned East New York, Brownsville, into Jamaica, the whole 9 yards. Their numbers business, and I'm going to go to you with that because you were there from the beginning, but I just want to lay it out a little, was a major source of income. In Bensonhurst, you had to provide your own income with a crew. Go Shylock, a bookmaker. There was no business to be made on the streets of Bensonhurst, so to speak. When you have a business that's in an area like that, it's like a major corporation for that area. It really was. And Anthony will explain to you what it involved, the intricacies, the volume of business, what we had to do. So you say, well, why, if it was so lucrative, why didn't everyone do it? Well, here's the thing. Bensonhurst, you walked around, everyone you knew you were. When you went into Jamaica, like we did every day, I think there was 4 or 5 of us, didn't matter who you were with. You might as well have been from Mars.
Yeah.
You're talking about, in the 1980s, the most notorious and feared drug dealers of the day. I'm going to mention some names. Maybe some people know them. Fat Cat Nichols, Supreme, Kenny Supreme, the Supreme team. Show you how bad they were. Fat Cat Nichols, they killed his parole officer on a visit. Yeah. The Supreme team killed a patrolman who was guarding a witness. So if you think we had a chance, or any white guy, or any mob guy, they could care less if Al Capone came there. So you had to carry yourself in the right way. And that's what we did on a daily basis. I listened to all these guys that did all these things. I salute them because we didn't have time to do those things. We were out there making money every day. You know, the murder guy takes a lot of time. So if you could sit there and murder multiple guys, I'm in awe of you. We couldn't do that. Yeah. We did what we had to do when we had to do it. Our whole day was spent in the jungle. You ever hear the expression, kill or be killed? That's how we live. That was Tony and Fat Andy's business. Not everyone could pull it off. They did. And we were just an arm of that. Yeah. So the numbers business and all that, so many things to it. Anthony could explain it much better than I can. So go ahead.
Yeah, you know, it's first let me touch on, you know, the neighborhoods. And you're right, it was different from neighborhood to neighborhood. You know, I did business when I was a kid. I worked in the Bronx in a crap game with Bronx guys. You know, my father, and when I used to go to Mulberry Street, my father, there was a lot of guys there that came from downtown Manhattan, actually came from Little Italy at the time when it was really Little Italy. Today, Little Italy is gone. But back then, people were born and raised in that neighborhood, and my father used to break their balls and tell them, what do you think, the sun only shines in Manhattan? It shines in Brooklyn too, he used to tell them, because, you know, they thought, the New York guys always thought they were better than everybody else for some reason. And my father, because my father, even though my father at the end hung out in Ozone Park, my father always considered himself a Brooklyn guy because he was born and raised in East New York, you know, but it was definitely different. And you're right, Café Liberty, a lot of legitimate guys hung out in there that came from East New York. They were all they worked on sanitation. They worked on the traffic for the traffic department, and they hung out there every day. We used to go there. You know, we were in the street every day. We were running around, and then we would go there for lunch. We'd go in and out. You know, we were the workers. And you know, Jamaica. So now Ozone Park. Ozone Park is situated between 2 major African-American neighborhoods, Bronzeville, Brooklyn, and Jamaica Queens. And we're right in the middle. Ozone Park's in the middle of these 2 prominent African-American neighborhoods.
Jamaica, that's the nationality. Those are the people that invented the number game way back in the day. They invented it up in Harlem. They invented it. It was pennies and nickels. And then the Italians, the mob got wind of it. And eventually the mob infiltrated Harlem and sort of took over the number business. They had an army, and they took it over. In Jamaica, there was number business. There was this guy, Tommy, who you know well, Big Tommy, who, was one of the major guys with the number business with my father. Him and Nicky Carrazza in the beginning, and them guys, they went into Jamaica and they took over the number business in Jamaica as controllers. And you're right, not everybody could do it because we had the runners. We took over all the runners. The runners were turning the numbers into us. We were controlling it, and we were turning it into a banker for a percentage. When I was working there, when you came in, we were doing 90,000 a day in numbers between the New York number, the Brooklyn number, single action. I mean, it was major, major, major money coming in. And we all worked, we went in the morning, we into the apartments with you were there. We did the slips, we did the ribbons, we did all the figures. Then we went from there, we went to the street, went to the office we had where eventually I was arrested in. And we paid the runners, we collected the money, we collected the day's work. We went and we had all these number spots and and all those major drug dealers were all in that neighborhood. And they had a lot of candy stores and they had pool halls, and we had number spots in all their places. We had an agreement with them. We had, we had an agreement with them. We even had a pool hall that we had a big number hole in the back. See, now today you go in these places and there's a lottery machines in them, but years ago, those were, we called them number holes. They were number spots. You went in there and they had a booth where you played numbers. Today you go in there, the same booth is in there, but there's a lotto machine in there now. But back then, so in this pool hall, we had a number spot and they were hiding crack in the pool tables. So we had to sit down with them and we explained to them that, go up the block, sell your crack up the block, stop putting it. And it was a mutual respect. But a lot of ethnic groups were trying to move in. And I guess like there was a Cuban crew called the Corporation. They were major cocaine dealers and heroin dealers. They had major, major money. And they wanted to get into the number business. They wanted to open up locations and pay 800 to 1. If anybody knows how the street goes, the game goes, we were paying 550 to 1. They wanted to pay 800 to 1 so the customers would go to them. We had to sit down with them and we made a deal. And we made a deal with them. We said, listen, either we come to some kind of agreement or we're going to start burning buildings down and then nobody's going to make money. So we came to an agreement that we would only open up number spots 2 blocks away from each other, and we would only go up to 600 to 1. And they agreed, and we all started making money. Then we actually started doing business with them. We started edging off to them. So yeah, we went into these neighborhoods. We didn't take over them as bullies. We put the community to work. I mean, I had families in Jamaica that worked for me. I would go in and out of their houses on Thanksgiving. We would go there with truckloads of turkeys. They loved us. It was a different world back then.
Let me just say, for a young person to get a job with us in the business from Jamaica was equivalent to a young person getting out of school and working on Wall Street.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Work for us.
Without a doubt. We had a lot of runners. We had a lot of pickup men. We had a lot of people working in the number spots, a lot of women, a lot of husbands and wives, and everybody made money. I mean, they loved us. We got arrested by accident because Freddie DiCongilio, Freddie Hot, came there one day and was recognized by a surveillance team that was surveilling some Rastafarians up the block over a marijuana business. And they spotted Freddie walking into the building and they said, what is this guy doing here? He hangs out by John Gotti's club. The next thing you know, they reported it and they took our pictures. They identified me and Carl and everybody, and they arrested us. That was the case. Eventually, I went to jail for. It became one of the first state RICOs for gambling in Santucci's office, the Queens DA. But we went in these neighborhoods and we took over because we made them earn money. We didn't just take it and throw them in the street. We went in there and we organized it because they maybe weren't capable, not that they're not smart enough, they just didn't have the organization, they didn't have the manpower, they didn't have the money to bankroll it. So we went into these neighborhoods, the mob, and we gave them opportunities to make money. We showed them how to do it. We organized it, and everybody, everybody got rich for it.
Anthony did a great job explaining it, but there's one thing you have to realize: while all this is going on, and it was an actual big business, we were ducking bullets. Sure. There were drugs all over the place. They really care about our business, so to speak, except the people we're doing business with. So it really was kill or be killed.
Yeah, we were in the hood.
Okay.
We were in the hood. I mean, we were in the hood. We stuck out like sore thumbs. We were, we were in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and we were Italian guys running around this neighborhood. When we got busted, when they knocked the door down, me and Carl had $30,000 in cash on the table. We were counting $1,000. We would make $1,000 packages. You know what I mean? Like, here we are in the heart of the hood. And we're sitting in this little office with $30,000 in cash, that was a daily thing. You know what I mean? That was just a daily thing. So yeah, we were in the midst of it, but they knew that if they messed with us, we would mess back. They knew the deal. Listen, like I say all the time, I said it on other shows, at the end of the day, it's all about the dollars, and everybody knew that, listen, there's plenty of money out here to be made. There's no reason for us to be beefing. Let's work it out so everybody makes money, and that's what it's all about. And that's what we did. Talking about everything, how everything's legal, even Shylocking's legal. I go to the mailbox today and I take out my mail and I come up to my house and I got 5 letters in there from pre-approved loans for $25,000, $5,000. Now, if I apply for that loan, that's a legal Shylock. I apply for that loan, they give me that loan. I don't pay them, they ruin my life. They ruin my credit, they ruin my life, they ring my neighbor's bells, they call my job, they garnish share my pay. So what's the difference? So when I'm as your Shylock, you don't pay me, I punch you in the nose. I've hit you with a bat. It's the same shit, ain't it? I'm still ruining your life, just like them. Everything's legal today, everything. And everything that's legal is stuff I went to jail for. But back in the day, we went to that neighborhood and we made money, and everybody made money until the government took it from us.
Well, on that note, I agree with it worked because everyone made money. But here's the other thing, like they say today, real knows real.
What's that?
They knew we were real.
Yeah.
It could be, listen to me, we'll treat you like men, you treat us like men, and that's what happened.
Right, and that's exactly what how it transpired, because they knew that we were there to stay, and let's all get along. You know what I mean? Let's all get along. Like I said, with the corporation, with the Cubans, we actually at one point after we made a deal with them, we were actually edging off to their bank, and they were banking some of our numbers because, like I said, we were controllers. So how it worked is a controller is someone that has a lot of runners. And we take all that work and we turn it into a bank, and we just get 10% off the top. And then we had the single action business, which they even do. It's funny because even the lotto does that now too. We used to call them bleeders. You pick 2 numbers and it was a bleeder. The lotto does it. They took everything. They copied everything down to the single action. They just wrote it differently. We used to call it bleeders. They call it whatever, lotto, whatever they call it. So we had a whole number business, which was the 3-digit, which was doing 90,000 a day. So we're turning that into a bank. So we're getting 10,000 a day from our 10%. Plus now we're banking the single action business ourselves, because I worked on the phone for many years in the single action until I went out to the street. Then I went out into the street and I've been in the number business. I was in the number business since the 70s when I was a little kid. Mikey Gal taught me how to do it. I used to sit behind him, and Tony Lee's brother, and he taught me. And I even got arrested in 74 on Mulberry Street, which was the first time my name was in the newspaper for numbers, in the number ring. I worked for Joe the Cat, Joe LaForte, who was a guy with John Gotti who owned the building where the Ravenite was in. I worked for him. Joe the Cat. He had the number business, numbers coming out of Staten Island. So and that was the first time my name was ever in the newspaper in 1974. I was 21 years old. So I was in that business for many, many years.
I know I picked the right guy to explain it. That's a great job.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there who have business degrees, we were administrators.
Yeah.
We created a multi-million-dollar business. And I got to tell you, Anthony will be the first to tell you. So in the morning, when we were accounting too, we were the accounting, we were everything.
We were everything.
If you were over a penny or under a penny, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be.
In the mob, whatever business you're in, at the end of the day, the money has to be right. It can't be under and it can't be over because something's wrong. Somebody's doing something wrong. Someone's stealing. Someone's not doing their job properly. The money, at the end of the day, the money always had to be right to the penny. It had to be, it couldn't be over and it couldn't be under. So it's no like, well, it's over. That's a good thing. No, something's wrong. Something's wrong, and recounted and redis. It was just, it was a shit show when the money wasn't right. But that's the game. Everything has to be right. You're right. It's funny because in the morning we all had our count. Remember, we used to sit at the table, and that's another way people used to make money. We used to work in legitimate people's homes and pay their rent. I mean, if it was the culture, the mob was, it was a whole different world, a whole different culture. We would go in legitimate people's homes in the neighborhood, in Ozone Park, in Howard Beach. We would go into their apartments, in their homes in the morning and sit at their kitchen table with bagels and coffee and do all our figures. Everybody would have their calculator. We'd be writing the slips out for the runners, doing the ribbon. We used to call it writing the ribbons out. Remember, we all had our calculators, and the family's kids were getting ready. The family's kids were getting ready to go to school, and the mother was in the kitchen, and we would pay their rent, pay their phone bill. They loved us.
Without doubt. So for people, a ribbon was actually a receipt of the business.
Exactly.
So that receipt either said where we were, that person, that runner was getting paid,
right?
But we had to collect money.
Yeah, we were organizers, we were intelligent. We just, used our skills, I guess, for, maybe in the wrong way, or we had no direction. We were kids. I always like to say that, it's funny, and and I'm not bragging. It's just, my daughter is a college graduate. She graduated from Michigan State, 4 years college. She's the first one in on my father's side that graduated college from our immediate family. I had some cousins, my cousins, my other Ruggiano cousins, they graduated college, but she's the first one of us that graduated college, and I went to visit her one day. I went to visit her one week, and we went to see the football game. The Spice, they always go up there all the time and watch the basketball team play. They had a great team, and Kirk Cousins was the quarterback at the time, and who's on the, on the Vikings now. He's the quarterback. So I went up there one day, and I was having dinner with her and her girlfriend, so the girls that she lived with, and her girlfriend turns around and tells me, your daughter used you the other day in our class as, she had to write a story about the smartest person she knows, and she wrote it about you.
Oh, listen, I agree with that.
She wrote it about me. And she wrote it about me, and it's not, so that's why we were able to work in those fields and prosper, because we were intelligent guys. We were thugs because that was just our lifestyle, but we had intelligence. You can't be a dummy and be in the street and make money. I mean, unless you're just, like an octopus or a bully, and you're just shaking people down, and people fear you when they're giving you money. You have to know how to create stuff in the street. That's why that brings you respect, not only because you could commit an act of violence. You got to know how to create stuff. You got to know how to organize stuff. You got to know how to work stuff. And that's what we were good at. When I got clean, I was in therapy, and I was in this group therapy session one day, and I don't know, I felt like out of place, and I was going to quit. And the therapist told me, you can't quit the group. You're the smartest person in the group. Them people in that group never could survive in your circle. If they stood on a street corner, you'd be eating steak. They'll be eating hamburgers. So maybe we just had no direction. I don't know. I had no direction. I mean, my father, he didn't know any better. You know what I mean? He put me to work when I was 16. He put me to work in a blackjack game, you know, and that's how I learned how to do all that. I worked I worked in a blackjack game. I worked in a dice game. I worked, you know, in poker games. You know, then I started working when I was 19 in the number office, you know, and that was my education. You know, my education was in the street. My education was with, you know, mob run businesses.
Well, I'm going to comment on a couple of things. And once again, you know, I know people that say I agree with you, everything. Yeah, but there's a reason I agree, because you're right.
Yeah.
First of all, street guy, it's the most overused term there is. And now, street guy doesn't even have to be a mob Italian guy. Doesn't even have to be a guy. How's that? You actually survive off the street. A real street guy, you could take a street guy, you could put him in a fucking desert, come back in 2 weeks. He's got palm trees and he's got a crew. Don't ask where he got them from, but that's where it is. And I want to touch on your father and Tony a little bit. They enjoyed a long run of longevity, basically under the radar. So actually, John became boss and Tony wound up in a couple of things. And the reason they did that, so when people say you're with a guy, so I'll use your father, and they had 100 guys around them. So what's that mean? If a business, they're protecting the business, everyone who works for that business is around Tony and Andy, and on and on. They had bookmakers, this and that. But the guys that were with them direct, the reason I believe they enjoyed longevity, and no one really knew them till now, was it's not about quantity, quality. They always had just a handful of guys who did every fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and them handful of guys.
We weren't a football team. We didn't have defense offer. All right, you guys, the killers are in. Let's go. The number guy, you're up. We did everything, which eliminated any chinks in the armor.
Right, and the crew and his immediate crew had a whole bunch of guys, you know, with them.
Yeah,
and that's how it worked. You know, listen, JoJo was a Shylock. He had an army of guys collecting money for him. I mean, technically, they were all with my father until they all got straightened up, until they all became made members. And then everybody, you know, went with them. You know, my father released everybody at one point, you know, because they were all made and he gave them their guys and all that stuff.
That says a lot about your father, by the way. Some guys would stand in the way of guys.
No, he didn't do that. He said, how's he going to do that? Because the companies, all the businesses belong to them. I mean, you know, all the businesses belong to them. But, you know, today, you know, the mob today, I don't know how they make money. I mean, I'm sure they're still booking sports, and I don't know if they're writing numbers anymore with the lottery. I don't know. Maybe that, you know, I have never seen a number hole or know of anybody that bets numbers anymore. I mean, you know, that was all, the culture's gone. I mean, now it's all the lottery and apps and websites and, you know, like I wouldn't even know how to make money today if I was in the street. I mean, I guess if I would have stood in the street, I would have evolved like everybody, you know, I guess you have to evolve like we did anyway back then. We evolved, you know, but I don't know how they make money. I don't even know what the young, like when I started working as a young kid, you know, when the first thing I did, I wrote numbers, you know, I sold cigarettes. I did all that stuff, you know, to make money. I don't even know what these Italian kids that think the mob is all that, what they're doing today to make money. I guess they're all got websites or whatever they're doing with stocks and bonds and whatever. I have no clue, but I know it's a different world out there now. It's one that I don't understand anymore as far as the mob's concerned. Because like I said, I don't know what they're doing to earn money. I know one thing, the way we made money and how we were brought up in the mob and how we were raised and the things we were taught how to do, they could never do it. The guys around today would have never survived in our day, ever. They could never keep up with us.
Well, you know, I say it all the time. You know, you don't realize it, right? You just wake up one day, we're the old timers. Yeah. I don't know how that happened, but you know, you get a lion in the jungle, he's fierce, he could hunt, he's got a killer instinct. You get a lion that's born in the Bronx Zoo, it looks like a lion, it roars like a lion, but it can't.
No, you put him out in the jungle, he's Bob, he won't know what to do.
100%.
We're waiting for someone to come to give him a steak.
Yeah, that's why, you know, there's nothing to do anymore. So that's why I try to look as good as I can. Hopefully, someone in Hollywood will discover me.